Greetings. I'm Dr. Linda James Myers. I'm a professor, scholar, researcher, social critic, and activist, medicine woman, and the developer of Heart Feather Educational Services that are online and offline training using optimal psychology methodology and curricula. Let me briefly share with you some information regarding optimal psychology and why it is such a valuable tool to be used in restoring social wisdom, justice, and sustainable well-being. The theory of optimal psychology was developed as I tried to understand the roots of racism and make sense of the behaviors of a people who would enslave other human beings as chattel and build their material wealth on their labor, forced labor, and claim to be owners of lands that clearly were inhabited by other people, forcing the indigenous people to be removed and for them to take over in the name of colonization. How could these perpetrators possibly believe that such cruel behavior was okay or acceptable? What could they be assuming to be true or thinking to justify that degree of extreme maltreatment, injustice, and absence of an ethical standard? And further, how did they see and refer to the people against whom they had aggressed, plundered, and consistently exploited as the uncivilized ones? After years of study, what I concluded was that it had to do with the kind of assumptions and conceptual system characterizing the perpetrators' designs for living and patterns of interpreting reality. That was what was causal. In other words, it was the nature of their cultural worldview and mindset that initiated and fostered such vicious, abusive behavior. Further, it became clear that this fragmenting, superficially oriented cultural mindset was such that it set its appearance up for not only insecurity, but fearfulness, materialistic greed, also anxiety, depression, substance abuse, prone to other addictions, violence, domestic and global, as well as racism, sexism, classism, elitism, weightism, heightism, ageism, and so on. You name it, and this suboptimal mindset legislates what human diversity markers are purported to be superior and what ones are alleged to be inferior. I'll not take time to go into the details of how this research shows that no one escapes the consequences of adopting this suboptimal conceptual system, not even those who seemingly are being privileged by and benefiting from the unwarranted value and system of assigning value and allocating opportunity to them that may be unjustified. As I examined and analyzed the cultural worldview of my own African and Native American ancestors, I knew that these designs for living and patterns of interpreting reality were not universal. The conceptual system and its assumptions behind these hostile behaviors were not simply the nature of human nature, although any human being could adopt them, but rather they were learned by virtue of the cultural worldview and indoctrination and social engineering of the society. My ancestors and our collective ancestors held a cultural worldview that was different, one that was holistic and integrative, recognizing the interrelatedness and interdependence of all things, concern for oneness with nature and community and those who came before and future generations, emerged from an optimal conceptual system, a unity consciousness that placed highest value on the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding which could yield the peace, justice, and sustainable well-being we need for the creation of a beloved community. The beloved community about which Martin Luther King spoke. Briefly and simply, the aim and process we seek to engage and teach is one of making sure our decisions are ones which support our hearts being as light as a feather when weighed on the scale of truth and justice. Thus, the Heart Feather curriculum. This curriculum, rooted in optimal psychology, is pivotal in the development of the games, which are based on true history, so that we can learn and master the lessons that history brings. The games will be designed to introduce players to a more optimal way of being in the world, teach them the subtleties and nuances of a more refined, holistic, integrative reality in which they are special and valued with unique contributions to make to the greater good of themselves and the world. As they engage in these games, they will be able to see a new vision and how to create it. They will grow in self-knowledge and mastery of the lessons the history we have created has come to teach us, so that we can grow into our true selves, which are much, much more than the human diversity markers we adhere. Although these markers exist for a good reason as well. It will be well worth our while to have our kids play games built on the heart-feather curriculum of optimal psychology, so that they can learn, grow, and heal, and be better able to create the world we, who love them, would hope they would have. So I say thank you so very much. Till we meet again. Peace abide.